welcome back to Lorehammer. I'm your host, Mark, and really excited for this episode today. So joining me, we got the good old Canadian boys on with me. We got Christoph.
Hello. Welcome to the Undivided episode.
Yeah, what's your title that you've given yourself?
Slightly Divided.
Chaos the Slightly Divided. Okay, well I regret inviting you on, but here we are anyways, Christian. Thanks for coming. We also got Jordan.
Hello, how's it going?
Very good, man. We got a fun episode ahead of us today about Chaos Undivided and Chaos Unbound. And we've talked about this maybe 2 or 3 times on other episodes very briefly. But since we've kind of been going over the Chaos Gods and their demons over the last couple episodes, I thought, well, let's dip our toes into this and see where it takes us. So it's going to be a lot of brainstorming, but I'll get to that in a minute. First, let's do some housekeeping. Come join the Discord. I've been told by multiple people now that me reading out the link is very helpful, but now I'm starting to think that you guys are developing one of those weird fetishes that you often do. So I'm not doing it again. I don't want to.
It happens.
Come join. It does happen where you guys start trying to goad me on to doing stuff. So no more. But come join the Discord nonetheless.
Yeah. And come join the Patreon. And you can join the Imperial Tithe and help support that show. Ad-free version for $2.50. Nobody likes listening to ads, let's be honest. We do it for the money. So you can pay us.
Unless it's any of our sponsors, of course. You know,
of course. I would never say anything derogatory about our sponsors. I love listening to our sponsors' ads. And you get the bonus, too, of getting video version of the show for just $5. So that's $1 for Mark, $1 for Jordan, and $3 for me. So
nice. Yeah,
$1 and a pat on the butt, which is always nice.
yeah.
That's my bonus.
It's a hefty price, but I'm willing to pay it every month.
And if you are paying $1 and a pat on the butt, you can also join the Patreon. You could join the live stream, not the Patreon. We have a live chat going through the show, and we often engage with the listeners in the chat. You'll hear us periodically interjecting comments from the comment section. And then we also do a call-in guest at the end of the show. And as always, you can join me for Whiskey and Warhammer. Today, we're doing a beer again. Moosehead Lager. Nice, crisp, reliable one. Because I'm out of whiskey. Well, I have whiskey. I just don't want to open the bottles because they're super expensive. And I was given some Mooseheads by a customer of mine in my job. So
how is the Canadian boycott affecting you? Can you still get some of your favorite drinks? Or are they off the shelves?
I have no idea. Actually, I haven't really. I don't think they did that in Alberta, to be quite honest. I don't think they took American liquors off the shelf. So I think that was just like Ontario, and it's
just the retarded places of Canada.
Pretty much all the retarded places in Canada. Totally a gimmick. Is Americans could give 2 shits about whether or not we sell American booze.
Hot take from Jordan. I love it. Yeah, I keep joking about Alberta becoming the 51st. Fuck Canada. Alberta becomes the 51st. I move back up there, and I keep my vow of never going back to Canada. But I'll go back to Alberta, which will become the 51st, and we'll podcast again.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm more of a fan of Albertan independence, but I'll take becoming the 51st state as a consolation prize.
Yeah, one step at a time, and then the 51st takes over all of America, and then we become, exactly. That's a different episode. This episode we're doing Chaos Undivided and Unbound, and it's gonna be fun. So in this episode, I'll kind of do the outline here. We'll start with the Pantheon. Talk about the little gods for a real quick second. Then we'll talk about the combined legion. So what that looks like when multiple gods bring the legions together. Undivided demons. Are there specifically demons for Undivided? And then what it looks like if you possess them, bind them, demon weapons. You kind of heard the drill before. And then war gear, different types of banners and instruments. And then we get to the Undivided Legions, where we'll talk about some demon princes, some demons, some demon engines, and some other things. And then finally, we will get to what I'm excited to talk about is Chaos Unbound. And in the last half of this episode, we're going to be kind of breaking apart Chaos Undivided and Chaos Unbound. But let's kind of first start. I keep saying these terms, undivided, unbound. So let's start with undivided. What does that actually mean? It's had different meaning throughout the years, like way back in earlier lore. Chaos Undivided mean you did not serve any of the gods. You would you served the warp. You served the powers of the warp. You were a bad guy, but you did not serve any specific god. Such instances of this were like Perturabo of the Iron Warriors.
Or the Night Lords.
Night Lords, another good one. But probably around that same time as the Horus Heresy books came around, we've seen this change of definition to the new lore of Undivided, where it's you serve 2 or more of the Chaos gods. So it could be in a combination, it could be rotating. Mondays is always Corn days. Thursday is Chinch, of course. Slanish Wednesdays. And since, it's Slanish, they also get Sundays. But
this is just a product of late stage capitalism, consumerism. We can't just make one god. We have to do multiple gods.
Yeah, buy 4 times the minis.
Yes.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I love it for that. And fuck, because capitalism demands even more of us, I even created the Unbound faction. So, if that's what Undivided is, you're serving 2 or more gods. Unbound is kind of like the old lore where you're serving no chaos gods, more like Abaddon the Despoiler, where he's like, yeah, I use the powers of the warp for my own good, or like Alfarius and his legion, the Alpha Legion, they also kind of like, I'll use chaos to my own ends.
Yeah, it's more self-serving use of chaos.
Yeah. So we'll eventually get into Unbound, but we're focused first on Undivided. You might be wondering, though, how does Unbound differ from Malice or Malal, which is the 5th chaos god? That is the god of gods against itself, chaos against itself, where Unbound, the warp is still like friendly to the warp. It's not trying to undo itself. The demons of Unbound will still work with the other demons, but it has a different end to it. But we'll get to it later. So it's different than this Malice concept.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's get into what is Chaos Undivided. Chaos Undivided is not a force to be famed, nor a deity to be understood. It is the embodiment of pure, unrestrained entropy, a seething, ever-shifting maelstrom of conflicting desires and violent impulses. It is the ultimate contradiction, unity within discord, harmony through madness. The followers of Chaos Undivided see the 4 great gods not as separate entities, but as facets of one incomprehensible power. To venerate them equally is to embrace chaos in its raw, unfiltered form. An act of worship that acknowledges no boundaries, no rules, no stability. In the end, chaos is the very force that destroys all certainties, a force that demands the worshiper to lose themselves to its endless whirlpool of ceaseless change. Anarchy pulses through the veins of Chaos Undivided, a riotous symphony of war, excess, slaughter, and decay. It is a place where the most desperate of passions converge, where the hatred of Corn can sit beside the lust of Slaanesh, and the cold, calculating nature of Chinch shares a seat with the pestilence of Nurgle. Chaos Undivided is a banner under which all can gather, regardless of their personal allegiance to any one power. There are no divisions, only an unholy unity that thrives on contradiction and imbalance. The forces of chaos follow no plan, no grand design, only the twisted whims of the moment. And under this banner, even the most contradictory forces of the warp can unite under the banner of entropy. The followers of Chaos Undivided are not restrained by the dictates of any one power. Their war bands are always the most diverse, filled with warriors who would otherwise be at odds. In their ranks, Khorne's bloodthirsty berserkers fight side by side with Slaanesh's hedonistic warriors and Nurgle's rot-infested champions. Even Tzeentch's scheming acolytes are drawn in, their webs of deceit entangling the chaos field rampage. The very nature of Chaos Undivided forces these compelling desires to clash in explosive anarchic harmony. In their constant war, they do not seek to serve one god over the others. They seek to serve the chaos that birthed them all. They are the purest expression of chaos itself, wielding it like a weapon that can destroy empires and twist the very fabric of reality. There is no safe path in the service of Chaos Undivided. Those who follow this creed walk a dangerous line, risking their souls to gain favor from the forces far older and more powerful than they can comprehend. Some may seek to use chaos as a means to their own selfish ends, seeking power, immortality, or ultimate destruction. But the price of such ambition is high, for the chaos gods are fickle, their blessings fleeting. To embrace Chaos Undivided is to risk everything, to trade your soul for the chance of power and glory. And yet, few can withstand the seductive whispers of the warp. Most who dabble with chaos are consumed by it, their bodies twisted into the hideous forms of chaos spawn, their minds shattered by the constant war of wills that rages within them. Chaos Undivided is the ultimate corrupter, a force that devours all who come into contact with it. It offers power beyond mortal imagining, but at the cost of everything that defines one as a human, or anything else. The followers of Chaos Undivided understand this. They embrace the eternal struggle, the slow, inevitable fall into madness. There is no salvation, only transformation. To worship Chaos Undivided is to accept that nothing will ever be the same again. You will never be the same again. The price is madness, the reward is power, and in the end, all that remains is the corruption of everything you once were. Yet, in this endless descent, they find freedom. The freedom to be whoever or whatever they choose, to serve none but chaos itself.
That last line's kind of cool, where it's kind of at the end of all this, you're gonna basically lose yourself. You typically do when you lose yourself to the chaos gods, but this one, it's almost intentional that you lose yourself to one of them. Like, the end goal is to power one of the gods, to power chaos itself. It's not so much like to serve them for a long time, and dying would power them. So, it's not, it's a different type of goal almost sometimes.
Yeah, the ultimate price to the gods. And we'll get into them, the Pantheon. And we've done more in-depth episodes on the Pantheon. You could just go back in our recent catalog, but we'll do a quick cursory overview of them just so we have them fresh in our minds. In Warhammer 40k, the Pantheon is a terrifying and incomprehensible force composed of 4 distinct yet intertwined deities: Khorne, Nurgle, Tzeentch, and Slaanesh. These gods embody the very essence of corruption, warping reality with their influence over the emotions and desires of mortals. While they may seem to represent opposing forces, war, decay, change, and excess, they are unified in their shared devotion to chaos, the primordial force of destruction and transformation. Together, they weave a dark, malevolent tapestry, constantly vying for supremacy, yet bound by their insatiable hunger for worship, suffering, and power. Mortals who serve them are twisted by their influence, their fates sealed by the capricious whims of these ancient godlike beings.
Oh man, it's getting fun. Yeah, the chaos pantheon. What happens when you start to put gods side by side? We first learn about Khorne. The blood god is the embodiment of violence, bloodshed, and war. He thrives on the destruction of his enemies and the brutal, unrelenting pursuit of combat. His followers, berserkers, warriors, and killers, are driven by an insatiable thirst for the blood and battle, offering skulls in tribute to the dark god. Khorne despises magic and trickery, valuing physical strength and martial prowess above all. His followers seek to prove their worth through relentless slaughter, knowing that each life they take fuels Khorne's endless hunger for war. In the eyes of Khorne, there is no honor except in victory, no glory except in spilled blood.
Nurgle. The Plague Father represents decay, disease, and the inevitability of death. His domain is one of suffering, rot, and slow, insidious destruction. Nurgle's followers embrace their suffering, viewing it as a twisted gift that grants them strength through resilience. Plague bearers and those afflicted by his gifts wear their diseases with pride, for in Nurgle's eyes, suffering is not a curse, but a means of transcending the pain of life. His rot spreads throughout the galaxy, a plague that consumes all things, but in his wake, Nurgle offers his followers a strange form of immortality, resilience against the ravages of time and death itself.
And remember, kids, Grandfather Nurgle loves you. Okay, let's get into change. The changer of ways is the god of change, ambition, and deception. He is the master of schemes, ever watching and ever manipulating, weaving webs of fate and plotting the rise and fall of empires. Chinch's followers are often sorcerers, manipulators, and those with a thirst for knowledge and power. They embrace the endless transformation of reality, using their cunning and sorcery to shape the future of their desires. Chinch represents the unending pursuit of change, the constant reshaping of the world, and the unpredictable twists of fate that keep his followers always striving for more. To serve Chinch is to seek enlightenment, power, and dominion over the ever-changing flow of time and reality.
And Slaanesh, the dark prince of pleasure, is the embodiment of excess indulgence and hedonism. Slaanesh seeks the heights of sensation, pushing the limits of pain and pleasure, joy and torment. His followers indulge in every form of excess, from the pleasures of the flesh to the intoxicating highs of the creativity and art. Slaanesh's champions are often seduced by the pursuit of perfection, caught in the endless cycle of wanting more beauty, more pleasure, more excess. The followers of Slaanesh live for the moment, seeking to experience everything life has to offer, even if it means embracing the darkest aspects of existence. To serve Slaanesh is to live in pursuit of a fleeting yet intoxicating euphoria that promises everything, yet delivers only more hunger. That the god of addiction almost. We've talked about the chaos gods and like how, well, okay, if you do kill somebody for corn, but you do it perfectly or you do it excessively, you start powering different gods. Sometimes the gods' goals align, and then you get what are the combined legions.
Though the ruinous powers are in constant rivalry, their demonic legions sometimes coalesce into terrifying hordes under the banner of Chaos Undivided, an unholy fusion of Khorne's wrath, Nurgle's decay, Chinch's sorcery, and Slaanesh's indulgence. These monstrous hosts arise when the tides of the warp shift in favor of pure, unrestrained destruction, or when a greater purpose, be it the annihilation of a hated foe or the corruption of an entire world, demands their combined strength. Such warbands are nightmarish to behold. Demons of Khorne charge forward in an unrelenting fury, their brass-clad forms wading through their miasma of Nurgle's rotting legions, while Chinch's ever-changing horrors weave their chaotic sorceries across the battlefield, all as Slaanesh's exquisite fiends dart between the carnage, reveling in the slaughter. Though these alliances are temporary at best, bound by mutual opportunity, rather than true unity, they represent the terrifying reality of chaos. No matter how much the gods feud, their legions can still stand as one, an unstoppable force of corruption, madness, and ruin.
Cool. Yeah, I'm starting to put together the picture of the different demons like standing side by side and all the different colors and stuff. And it's interesting, we'll get to my version of kind of Chaos Undivided eventually, but in this version, they're definitely separate demons coming together, like to battle side by side. These aren't new creations by the gods.
Yeah, I
that's
think
right, yeah.
even doing like combined legions is just fun on the miniatures. It'd be fun to do because a little more creativity, do some more mixing and matching. But all right, let's get into the first combined legion, Khorne and Nurgle, the Rotfang host. They're a brutal warband where berserk, disease-ridden warriors spread both carnage and plague in equal measure. Their rusted weapons dripping with both blood and infection. That's actually pretty dope. Chinch and Nurgle, the blighted flux, a shifted tide of corruption where ever mutating plagues twist flesh and fate alike, leaving only maddening survivors racked by both sickness and warped reality.
Slaanesh and Nurgle, the festering ecstasy. A nightmare of pleasure and decay, where pain and sickness are embraced as forms of exaltation, and the line between suffering and indulgence is completely erased. Your fingers rot off, and you're like, yes, this was wonderful. Again, now do my toes.
Or STDs. Just the warband of STDs.
Yeah. When you're fucking an Urgling's pustules, this is how you get the festering ecstasy. Anyways, Khorne and Chinch, the Crimson Paradox, a warband of sorcerous butchers, where warp-fueled fury meets devastating cunning, wielding raw chaotic energy as both blade and spell to rip reality asunder.
Warhammer Fantasy has a really cool priestess of Khorne, where you get the strong like magic / blood god vibes, which they typically conflict. Khorne isn't all about magic and scheming, but it is cool when they do come together.
And while he's not into it, if I'm like, hey Khorne, what about blood magic? You into that? And he's like, well, go on, now we're talking.
Does have blood in it, of course. Yes. Yeah. All right, let's get into Khorne and Slaanesh. The Howling Symphony, a cacophony of carnage where bloodlust and excess intertwine, each kill a frenzied work of art, and each battle a performance of madness and delight. Chinch and Slaanesh, the Gilded Masquerade, a deceitful and ever-shifting host where illusions and temptations weave together into a trap from which there is no escape, luring victims into their own ruin. You ever watched Cirque du Soleil? That's what I imagine is something like that. You're just you can't comprehend what you're watching, and then you're just sucked right into it.
Yeah, for sure. That dual kind of magic and like illusions of Slaanesh for sure. And then you could get fun with these, and you could go, well, what about if we combine 3? So then you could get such fun ones as the festering rot fang flux. Maybe not the best, but what about the Crimson Howling Masquerade? Okay, sure. But you could get some fun ones, come up with different themes of why they're working together and all that kind of stuff. You'd really get, like with Demon Princes, like kind of get the vibe off of like, okay, why are these guys together? Well, like, what's this Demon Prince up to that's kind of bringing them together?
Yeah, it's definitely ripe for like telling your own stories or finding unique combinations to create a custom warband or something.
Yeah.
All right, let's get into the undivided daemons. Furies, the chaotic, maddening demons of Chaos Undivided, are born from the raw, unshackled energy of the warp, a manifestation of pure fury and endless conflict. Unlike demons, bound to a singular god, Furies serve no one power, but are instead creatures of pure anarchy, embodying the essence of chaos itself in its most unrestrained form. They emerge from the fabric of reality in a storm of howls, their wings and limbs disjointed, their forms shifting between incoherent masses of rage and energy. With every moment, they ripple and change, ever settled, always thrashing against the very notion of order. These beings bear allegiance only to the essence of destruction, corruption, and change. Their devotion to chaos itself fueling their relentless drive to tear at the fabric of reality, to distort it, to sow madness wherever they go. They are not subtle. They do not seek whispered bargains or seductions. They are pure violence, the embodiment of the storm that rages across the cosmos. No single deity can claim them, for their allegiance lies in the fractured, swirling depths of the warp, where all powers merge and clash in a ceaseless spiral of ruination.
Yeah, cool. So Undivided does actually have the ability to create their own demons, Furies, which seem to be different than other type of warp anomalies like Enslavers, the Enslaver Plague. Those guys are not Chaos Undivided. They're their own thing. There's a lot of those things, but Furies are definitely these like scrap combinations of violent warp energies that are able to manifest because they almost have the same purpose as the other chaos gods, like the same end goal of chaos.
Yeah, they're really cool. I don't think they've made models for them in 40K, but definitely Fantasy has released Chaos Furies, so like they do have models
Yeah.
you could theoretically use.
Yeah, we're gonna come back to the Furies a lot in this episode, especially in Unbound. But we'll leave that there. But yeah, the Chaos Furies from AOS and stuff is super cool.
Not to be confused with furries.
No, different Chaos beast. But Furies kind of look like gargoyles, very much gargoyle-esque.
Yeah.
All right.
Think of them as like the lesser demons of Chaos Undivided. The way you have like the equivalent of like Bloodthirsters or what are the Nurgle ones called? Not Poxwalkers.
Plague Walkers,
Plague Walkers,
Demonettes, Horrors.
Yeah, they're like on that same level as those ones.
Yeah, they that's a good way to think of it, but it's not necessarily.
It's not a
true.
one-to-one comparison, but yeah.
It's not even like a one-to-one comparison. It's just they aren't lesser demons, but they are comparable to them. But like that's just being a dickhead arguing semantics, essentially. And we will do that later.
That is my favorite thing to do.
Yeah, we will say, because what you said kind of bangs on what we're gonna do later. But anyways, what happens if you get possessed by an Undivided? To be possessed by Chaos Undivided is to be torn apart and reforged in the fires of unbound madness. As countless demonic entities war for control, their gibbering voices flooding the mind with conflicting commands. The victim's body twists into a nightmarish form, jaded wings, clawed fingers, and leering shifted faces, becoming a shrieking conduit of raw anarchy, doomed to burn out in mindless carnage unless bound to a stronger will. Far worse is possession by rival gods, where Khorne and Slaanesh trap a soul between berserker fury and paralyzing ecstasy, or Tzeentch and Nurgle, where a wretched body between a grotesque mutation and rotting decay. Such wretches are chaos incarnate, their existence a ceaseless contradiction of agony, change, and corruption. Yeah, this is fun. If you get possessed by this, it's the possible multiple demon possession where they're vying over your soul and they're not going to treat you well, but also it could be a lot of power.
Yeah. Is this where spawnhood might come from? Like just turning into like a gibbering mess?
Yeah. But you could start getting some cool mutations too. You get like the slithering tail from Slaanesh worship, and then you also got like a bulging bicep from like punching shit.
But just one.
Yeah, just one. You only need one.
Yeah. All right, let's get into the bound. To bind a demon of Chaos Undivided is to shackle a storm, forcing raw anarchy into unwilling servitude. Furies, the shrieking embodiments of chaos, make for volatile bindings, thrashing against their prison, be it a blade, helm, or tome, whispering in discordant voices and subtly shifting when unobserved. A fury-bound sword may strike with unnatural hunger, but the moment its wielder falters, it twists in their grip, forcing betrayal or self-destruction. Far worse are artifacts infused with rival gods, their bound demons locked in eternal war. An axe bearing Khorne's fury and Slaanesh's finesse shifts unpredictably between brutal slaughter and precise agonizing cuts, while a staff infused with both Tzeentch's sorcery and Nurgle's decay unleashes power that mutates and rots in equal measure. Such bindings are not weapons but curses, damned objects that twist fate and flesh alike, ensuring those who seek to master them are ultimately consumed. Yeah, that's really cool. Like just an unpredictable weapon of like great power, but like utter devastation.
Yeah.
Can't control it. Think of it as like, yeah, almost like a nuclear energy. Like, yes, it's super powerful, but if it's can be super unstable and cause problems for you as much as your enemy.
Yeah, like if your containment breaks for this, it's not gonna be good.
Now, can weapons like also affect the user? Like, I'm more thinking, Lord of the Rings and the One Ring. Um, how that like sort of perverts the soul, corrupts you. Can bound weapons do that as well?
Yeah. Fulgrim is a great example of that.
Okay.
Literally.
Yeah, they
Is that-
whisper it in your ear.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay.
So we'll jump into demon weapons specifically. Chaos Undivided demon weapons are cursed, living entities infused with the raw, archaic power of the warp, thrashing against their bindings with every strike. A fairy-bound blade is no mere weapon. It is a conduit of madness, lashing out unpredictably, hungering for carnage, and overwhelming its wielder with relentless fury, until the line between bearer and demon dissolve entirely. Far worse are weapons infused with rival chaos gods. They're bound demons locked in eternal conflict. An axe imbued with both Khorne's wrath and Slanish's cruel pleasure forces its wielder between frenzied slaughter and obsessive delight in destruction. While a dagger infused with Nurgle's decay and Chincha's sorcery shifts unpredictably between sickness and mutation. That's kind of funny. It's like the sickness changes to mutation, which is a boon of change, and then it changes to more mutation, just a cycle. Such weapons are not tools of power, but cursed relics. Their chaos essence, twisted fate, warping reality, and driving those who wield them toward inevitable madness. Yeah, a lot of this is like you start combining two gods at the same time, things really start to go sideways. Like, and then I can't imagine you put three things in an object, then it's really like everything gets broken. We got demon engines as well as some kind of bound objects, but we'll talk a little bit about them later when we talk about demons specifically. So
Right, let's get into the war gear. Furies, as manifestations of pure chaos, wield war gear that mirrors their chaotic and anarchic nature. Their weapons are never stable, blades, whips, and claws that constantly shift, warp, and change with each strike. These demonic tools are not simply instruments of destruction, they are reflections of the Furies' role as chaotic agents, imbued with the restless power of the warp. Fury's armor and gear seem to exist in a constant state of flux, with swirling runes that pulse unpredictably, often appearing more like the manifestation of nightmares than any kind of protective clothing. Some might wield shattered shields that ripple with psychic energy or chains that lash out in unpredictable patterns, ensnaring their foes or tearing through armor with savage abandon. Each piece of war gear reflects this chaotic impulse of the Furies, never predictable, always shifting, and utterly destructive.
yeah, cool.
All right, the combined legions war gear. So kind of continuing on this thought. In the tumultuous world of Chaos Undivided, Furies sometimes manifest alongside other powerful demons, combining forces with those of rival deities. These combined legions are born from the unholy blending of opposing powers, yet still bound by the singular force of chaos. Furies themselves serve as chaotic agents who thrive in this discord, their presence adding an unpredictable nature to these alliances. For example, a legion consisting of Furies, Khorne's bloodthirsty demons, and Nurgle's decayed followers would be an unrelenting force of destruction, where savage bloodletting mixes with the slow, sickening advance of corruption. The Furies' role in these legions is often that of wild unpredictability, acting as harbingers of chaos and forcing even the most controlled of forces to collapse into madness. Their presence destabilizes, ensuring that even in the midst of opposing deities' forces, chaos remains supreme and unfettered.
Cool. Yeah, I pictured the Furies now getting involved in taking the war gear from the other legions that we've talked about, whether it's like a musical instrument or a banner of rage or whatever. I also see kind of like the Khorne or the Furies kind of being middlemen between the legions. Kind of if a banner falls for one legion, they'll go fly over and pick it up and make sure the legions are still kind of united. Or if the legions maybe turn on each other, they maybe pick the right side to make sure things balance out or simmer down or however it works. But they're kind of this unique in between for the legions.
Yeah.
So you get all types of different things. The big thing you get if you become a follower of Chaos Undivided or you're a demon is you get the mark of Chaos Undivided. And that is a symbol of total devotion to the pure, unfiltered essence of chaos. And those who bear the mark bear the very forces of entropy, corruption, and madness. Furies, embodiments of unrestrained fury and chaotic energy, often bear this mark as a sign of their allegiance to the most unshackled form of the warp. The mark itself is a swirling symbol, an intricate combination of all the symbols of the major chaos god, unified in a constant state of flux. For Furies, the mark is not merely a badge, but it is an extension of their nature. It represents the pure existence as pure embodiments of the clash between the aspects of chaos, reflecting their endless hunger for destruction and disorder. The mark serves to bind them to Chaos Undivided, ensuring that their form is one of ultimate anarchy. You also got the classic kind of 8-pointed star for the Chaos mark. But like, man, I imagine if it wasn't a painted mini and if it was real, yeah, you'd get this like shifting tattoo, you know, between the different symbols. And like every time you look, it's kind of flickering to something, another aspect of chaos. But that's just my mind.
The various icons of chaos. Each god of chaos has its own icon, a representation of their power and influence across the universe. For Furies, these icons represent the instruction of all the chaotic energies they embody. Intersection of all the chaotic energies they embody. Though they may not serve a single deity exclusively, Furies are drawn to the icons of all four gods as symbols of the discord they sow. Whether it is the skull of Khorne, the chalice of Slaanesh, the pestilent symbols of Nurgle, or the eye of Tzeentch, Furies are often seen bearing these icons in battle, not as symbols of devotion, but as a way to fan the flames of discord, pushing all forces toward madness. Their icons, imbued with the essence of each god, resonate through the Furies, amplifying their unpredictable nature and ensuring that no battle involving them remains stable for long. Yeah, so that is cool that they can have any of the symbols. It's just a free for all out here.
Yeah.
It's chaos. All right.
Some might describe it as chaotic.
Yeah. Instruments of chaos. They are tools of dark power, often bound to specific forces or individuals that can manipulate the very fabric of reality in the service of the ruinous powers. For Furies, these instruments are volatile conduits of power, swords that burn with the rage of 1,000 souls, instruments that warp the minds of mortals, and artifacts that summon the terrifying power of the warp. Furies wield these instruments with little regard for control or purpose, letting them spill chaos and madness into the world around them. Whether they use these instruments to bring down entire cities or twist the very minds of those they encounter, Furies treat them as extensions of their own chaotic nature. Every instrument is a weapon of madness, a tool of destruction, and a catalyst for the unending war of chaos against the cosmos itself. So is this like a musical instrument? Is that what we're talking about here?
Yeah, and I tried to word it like, you know, just imagine a non-musician picking up a musical instrument and like just not handling it well. Like he's not using it's chaos. So,
Yeah.
you know, whether he uses the drum as a hammer or what, you know, the guitar strings as garrots, it's up to the chaos of it all, I think.
Okay, gotcha.
I just feel like, yeah, they're not using these instruments for music in the same way the other legions do.
Yeah. Just making random noises and killing people with them.
Yeah.
Instruments were always intended to be used. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll get to the undivided demons. So there's a couple different types of demons that we know kind of exist for undivided. We got demon princes. We'll talk about some examples of them and what that looks like. Like we said, we also have furies. And then there's also demon engines. So let's get into these kind of things. Chaos Undivided does not play favorites, and neither do its demons. These furies, wretched and tormented, are wild, or the truest manifestation of raw, untamed chaos. Ringed horrors that soar through the warp and real space alike, shrieking in ceaseless agony. Unlike the greater demons of the dark gods, they are claimed by none, spurned by all, existing in a state of eternal damnation. Born from the souls of the faithless and treacherous, and those who failed to fully devote themselves to a single god. They are twisted by the ever-changing tides of chaos, their bodies writhing in unstable mutations. When they manifest in the material realm, it is a swarm of shadowed silhouettes, their leathery wings beating against the air as they descend upon the battlefield in mindless fury, ripping and clawing anything in their path apart. They are scavengers of war, drawn to carnage like vultures, feasting on the fear and suffering of the dying. Yet, despite this monstrous hunger, they remain cursed, forever unwanted, forever yearning for a patron that will never come. Definitely furies are the biggest things when it comes to this. We get into some weird territories when it comes to demon princes. Like, how does that work? Where does the power come from? What happens if one of the gods take away the power of, if a demon prince is powered by two and one god takes it away, what happens then? There's some weird stuff that's always happened, and maybe we don't have the best examples of.
Yeah, like even a lot of the undivided stuff generally is kind of speculative, and that there just isn't that much about it. Like, there's not many official war bands other than like the big ones, but yeah, there's a lot of detail that's missing for sure.
Yeah.
But let's explore the demon princes. Chaos Undivided demon princes are former mortal champions who ascended to demonhood through their unwavering devotion to chaos as a whole rather than a single god. Unlike their counterparts who serve Khorne, Tzeentch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh, these beings embody the unpredictable and ever-shifting nature of the warp, wielding powers granted by all four ruinous powers in a delicate and volatile balance. Their forms are twisted and immense, a fusion of the traits of multiple gods, hulking with unnatural strength, wreathed in sorcerous energy, resilient beyond mortal comprehension, and exuding an aura of dark majesty. These demon princes often act as warlords of chaos legions, commanding vast armies of mortals, demons, and warbands bound by raw ambition rather than loyalty to a single deity. However, their allegiance to Chaos Undivided is not without peril. Without a single patron to protect them, they must constantly prove their worth, lest they be cast down by envious rivals or consumed by the very forces that elevated them. It's like the greatest payoff or the greatest risk, right? Like, you're messing with four powers that are often at odds with each other. If it works, great, you become very powerful and can like access the power of all the gods, or it can go very sideways very quickly and you turn into a gibbering chaos spawn.
Yeah. And let's just say we don't have a lot of examples of where it goes right in this situation. Often you're not going to dupe the gods, but there are a couple notable demons that seem to kind of have done it. The most notable is Be'lakor. And then we also got Madil. But we'll talk about them a little bit later in a second. We'll dive now to Furies. We talked about their purpose kind of a lot. They're kind of scavengers of the battlefield. We talked a little bit about how they're formed. But let's talk about their appearance. You ever watch the Gargoyle TV show?
Yes.
Yeah, so I was looking at images of them today. But some inspiration. That's all I'm saying. We'll get there. Furies are.
Sorry, that's just an underrated show. I'm sure it like unlocked the memories for hundreds of listeners just now.
Yeah, man, fucking classic. Furies are twisted nightmares creatures, Their forms are grotesque fusions of avian, reptilian, and demonic features. Their gaunt skeleton bodies are covered in patches of coarse, matted fur and leathery skin, stretched thin over wiry muscle and protruding bone. Massive bat-like wings extend from their haunchbacks, allowing them to glide and swoop with terrifying speed. Their elongated faces bear gaping, fang-lined maws, filled with jagged teeth that snap and gnash in ceaseless hunger. Beady, malevolent eyes gleam with primal malice, constantly darting about in search of prey. Some furies sport curling horns, barbed tails, and additional clawed limbs, manifestations of the ever-changing nature of chaos. Though none of these mutations grant them the favor they so desperately crave.
Yeah, like existing as a fury is a terrible existence too. Like you don't have a patron god. You're kind of like an outcast. You're just like suffering under the warp as much as anyone else. So when you have the chance to be unleashed, you're gonna take all that rage and hurt out on whatever living creature you can catch. Like they're truly wretched beasts.
No, I'm somewhat unfamiliar with these units. You can play them on tabletop. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure you can.
Are they do
they
they
have
like
rules?
do they vary a lot in appearance, or are they kind of all uniform?
I was gonna pull up pictures later in this episode, but might as well do it right now for you.
Right.
This is what they look like. They are pretty similar.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Yeah, I mean you can I guess change them their positions I guess a little bit, but yeah, okay.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
a species.
Yeah, they have like a consistent
Yeah.
look about them. There's also an older set of Furies that I didn't know about that came out in 2002 on the Lexicanum.
Oh yeah.
They look a little different than these ones. These ones are those fantasy ones that I was talking about.
Do they look
they're-
better or worse?
They look more like Crude Hawks, I think someone was saying in the chat. They have like more animalistic features in their face. These ones look more gargoyle-y.
Right.
But yeah. Do they, Mark, they do have rules for the tabletop?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I've never really dabbled with demons, so gotta keep that
Yeah,
soul.
you know, they always fall into like a weird spot where you put them in a Chaos Space Marine army, and they don't go in any of like the demon armies necessarily. So they're kind of like a weird.
You probably don't see it used much.
Yeah.
Right. Let's get into their powers and abilities. Though lacking the divine gifts of greater demons, Furies possess a terrifying agility and speed that makes them difficult to strike down. Their member swings allow them to soar above the battlefield, swooping down upon isolated prey with vicious tearing claws. They can sense weakness, their fear in mortals drawn to suffering like carrion birds to a corpse. Some possess a flickering grasp of warp energy, vanishing into the shadows of the Immaterium, only to reappear behind their prey. Their movements erratic and unpredictable. However, their greatest weakness is their own instability. Without patronage of the Chaos God, they lack the focus of blessings needed to rise above their bestial existence, doomed to forever skulk on the edges of true power. Yeah, like I said, the Fury's existence is very miserable. They're just a miserable, wretched group.
Like what would be like a comparable unit to a Fury? Like what could kill a Fury? Do you have to have like chaos power to kill it, or like a psyker, or could just any bolt gun kill a Fury?
Yeah, for sure. Any bolt gun could kill them. You know, demons are actually kind of interesting where you actually have better luck hitting them with melee weapons and ranged weapons. Like there's an actual difference there. But yeah, like they're not all powerful, these Furies. Like maybe they're not quite one-on-one to a human, maybe 2 humans per 1 Fury. I think that'd be probably a fair fight. You know, maybe 1 human gets mangled a little bit.
Yeah. Interesting. Okay, well then let's get into their war gear. Unlike the demonic warriors of the Chaos gods. Furies do not wield weapons, armor, or arcane artifacts. And Grimaldus in the chat says they're on tabletop, their toughness is like 3 or 4. So evidence just by the fact they usually don't wear any kind of armor. So obviously they wouldn't be that tough. But their war gear is their own twisted flesh, razor sharp talons that rend through armor, dagger-like fangs that tear into flesh, and the raw power of their wings that send them streaking through the sky. Some bear mutations that grant them barbed tails, venomous stingers, or additional limbs to lash out at their victims. Do you guys have any thoughts on where they get those mutations? Is it just like through chaos or the warp, or can Eugene seed them or something like that?
Just like anything on the warp, I think there's always an element of unpredictability.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
You might have an extra thumb or an extra claw or an extra tail, barbed tail.
Grimaldus in the chat wants to know how many Furies Christian could kill.
That is a good no.
At least 7. I'm just ballparking. Yeah.
Okay.
But not all at once. That would be foolish. Probably take one at a time.
Well, I'm glad eventually the Furies do take you away, dragging you, kicking and screaming. The 8th Fury gets Christian.
All right.
It's actually a popular saying in the warp. The 8th Fury gets the Christian.
Their very presence carries the taint of the warp, and prolonged exposure to a Fury's essence can leave mortals afflicted with madness, paranoia, or even spontaneous mutation. Okay, that kind of answers my question there too. Yet, despite these terrifying traits, they remain little more than savage predators, forever denied the blessings and true weapons of Chaos's favored legions.
Yeah. They are pretty cool looking, though, and they have a pretty cool role. Even how they're born is kind of pretty cool. When we get to the Unbound Legion, I make heavy use of these guys. But that's all we need to know about them for now. We'll jump into the demon engines, because that's definitely Chaos Undivided. Both in kind of its truest kind of name. And so maybe I'll read this. I'll get to my thought by what I mean by that. Chaos Undivided demon engines are nightmares, war machines infused with the essence of the warp, bound with the souls of demons that serve no singular chaos god, but rather the will of the chaos as a whole. Unlike the more specialized demon engines of Korn, Nurgle, Chinch, and Slaanesh, these monstrosities embody the raw, unfiltered fury of the ruinous powers working in unison. Their forms are horrific fusions of twisted metal and withering flesh. Their horns adorned with chaotic runes and shimmer with dark energy. Many of these engines, such as the Defiler and the Decimator, are brutal juggernauts capable of annihilating both infantry and armored targets, while relentless firepower and devastating melee attacks. Others, like the Hellforged vehicle of the Dark Mechanicum, are ancient relics of war, corrupted over millennia and now driven by the tortured, enslaved souls of the former crew. These abominations aren't merely machines; they are living extensions of the warp, hungering for destruction and feeding on the tearing carnage of battle. And then, you could have any kind of demon engine that's not specific, like Soul Grinders, Mauler Fiends, Forge Fiends, Hell Drakes. There's a whole Defilers. There's a whole shit ton. But demon engines, we've talked a lot about them being aligned to a specific god. Like, okay, when you take a demon and put it in an engine, you get a Korn engine. But when you take Undivided, you get kind of this Undivided. But since they also come from Vashtar and the Soul Forge, and they kind of swear allegiance to that and kind of swear to uphold that, they're kind of undivided in and of itself. They're this kind of other branch where they're like, we kind of want chaos to be working together. And these guys, these Soul Grinders, are going to hold this bond true.
Yeah, they're almost like another sub-faction within Chaos.
Yeah. Yeah, not quite Undivided, because Undivided is you worship them all equally, or kind of is the concept or the goal, roughly. But yeah, that's you worship more just chaos and destruction. Serve that. Yeah.
Right, let's get into some notable demons of Undivided. Notable demons of Chaos Undivided are those that exist outside the direct worship of one specific Chaos God, representing the tumultuous, unpredictable nature of the warp itself. These demons, like Furies, are often more chaotic and driven by their desires rather than any one deity's demands. A Fury, for example, might gain favor from one of the Chaos Gods through acts that align with that deity's desires, such as spreading discord for Slaanesh or executing acts of brutal violence for Khorne. However, it is also possible for such a demon to earn favor in ways that lead to recognition and a title from another Chaos God, perhaps due to its ruthless efficiency, craftiness, or chaotic nature. It might find itself honored by Chinch if it cunningly manipulates others for personal gain, or even Nurgle if it infects and corrupts others in ways that strengthen the god of plague's dominion. Chaos, by its very nature, often rewards power, ambition, and the ability to manipulate the forces of the warp, leading to strange alliances and titles being granted across the Pantheon, creating demons that exist at the fringes of one of the gods' influence, but under the broad umbrella of Chaos Undivided.
Yeah. So you kind of can become notable. You could kind of gain favor, but chances are good you're going to lose favor if you gain too much with one god or another one. The gods have also come together and made specific demons, specifically demon princes. Be'lakor is the best example of like a Chaos Undivided demon. But yeah, like the thing about Undivided is it's very fickle and changing, you know.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to wrap your mind around a bit, but
Yeah, and not a lot of constant in it. Where the other legions are like, okay, I can get like angry red demons or like purple pleasure maids. I can get these kind of
yeah.
images and carry them through.
Well, let's get into you just mentioned Be'lakor, and we did cover Be'lakor in episode 123, the first of the Damned. So if you want to go back to that episode and check it out. Anyways, he's the oldest known demon prince of chaos, uniquely favored by all four chaos gods, but eternally cursed to serve rather than rule. Once a mortal champion, he ascended through the blessings of the ruinous powers, only to be denied the dominion he craved. Instead, the dark gods bound him to a cycle of manipulation and servitude, forcing him to crown each new ever chosen while never claiming the title himself. A master of scheming and subterfuge, Be'lakor operates from the shadows, corrupting warlords and sorcerers, seeking to break free from his cursed existence. Unlike other demon princes, he serves Chaos Undivided, wielding the gifts of all gods while truly belonging to none. His dark aura makes him difficult to banish, ensuring his return from defeat as he plots vengeance in the depths of the warp. You know, I kind of like, I almost wish they included more characters that kind of work in the shadows. And maybe that's just because, like, a lot of stuff I'm reading right now is, like, I recently read a book about Alan Dulles, who's like the first director of the CIA. And he's like not a name that a lot of people are familiar with, but he was an incredibly nefarious person and
You don't say.
did a lot of crazy shit. And and not to get into this, but he probably assassinated JFK. But
And now he's going to assassinate Jordan.
No, he's already dead. But
oh, thank God.
But it is funny. Alan Dulles himself actually never ended up he had wealth at one point, but he kind of ended up dying poor. But anyways, kind of an interesting story. But you know, in any good like intrigue or powerful force, you always got to have those characters who are like in the shadows, you know, being the mastermind that aren't the public facing person. So anyways, just a thought. In the 41st millennium, Be'lakor has capitalized on the chaos of the Great Rift, leading his own legions of demons and expanding his influence beyond the shadow of the demon Primarchs and Abaddon. He played a key role in the fall of Cadia, using his mastery of shadow to weaken Imperial defenses and aid the 13th Black Crusade. While Abaddon remains Chaos' dominant force in the material realm, Be'lakor steadily gathers power, seeking to challenge his rivals and carve out his own dominion. He is the embodiment of Chaos Undivided's ambition and treachery, forever plotting to overthrow those who stand in his way. Though the dark gods may never grant him the throne he desires, the first damned will never cease his efforts to seize it. Yep, absolutely. He's the 40K equivalent of Alan Dulles.
Yeah, goddamn. Alan Dulles became a demon Primarch.
He absolutely did.
I mean, yeah.
His expertise was like overthrowing governments and other countries abroad. So this like totally fits the bill. So, anyways, I digress.
I'm glad you picked up and mentioned the shadowiness of it. Man, we're almost at the unbound portion where, believe it or not, I'm going to bring that up some more as kind of the key features of Unbound. But that episode we did, episode 123, Be'lakor, was a lot of fun. In that episode, we went on a crazy journey, and we ended up at the conclusion. Is Abaddon the despoiler Be'lakor? So, like, if the time in the warp is essentially meaningless, and once it happens all across the warp, Abaddon could be Be'lakor. He fights against all
like
the
his
chaos.
future itself.
Yes, exactly. Eventually, he will become it. But since he became it, he becomes it across all time. But so currently he's yet to become it. But it was a very fun theory to go through of just like, well, this is what happens when you think you're better than the Chaos Gods and you think you can collect their power and their marks. But ultimately, no, you're going to become Be'lakor.
That's really cool, actually. I dig that, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of fun.
Yeah. Does Be'lakor can he like have Space Marine followers? Like, can he have mortal followers? Like a warband or something?
Yes. Now, what was fun about him is Be'lakor is a huge fucking demon, man. He's powerful. So his followers, he prefers the company of Imperial Knights. Yeah, he rolls with knights, man. And
is that canon, or is that you inserting that?
No, that's canon, man. No, he has a knight household that he took over, and like he brought it into the warp, and that's like his knight household in his world. And this whole picture of Be'lakor, the Lord of Shadows, creating like shadows for his knights to hide, and you got these 50-foot tall robots disappearing into shadows.
He just always has to go bigger. He's like, oh, you have Space Marines 8 feet tall? Okay, cool. I got knights that are 50 feet tall. So
yeah.
All right. Let's look at another demon prince, Madael. Madael was a powerful demon of Chaos Undivided, summoned during the Horse Heresy after long preparations. His arrival was tied to the Ruin Storm, a massive warp disturbance that disrupted the Astronomicon. On the death world of Pythos, chaos-worshipping Davanites, guided by a messenger from the warp, played a key role in this summoning. The remnants of the Iron Hand's 111th Company, along with Raven Guard and Salamander's allies, unknowingly allowed these cultists to settle near their base. When the Davanites revealed their true allegiance, it was too late. Madael manifested, demanding their sacrifice. Their blood empowered a final ritual that unleashed a full-scale chaos incursion, overwhelming the Iron Hands as demons and Pythos deadly predators tore through their ranks. Captain Durun Atticus led the last desperate charge to send a warning to Terra, but though the message was sent, it was indecipherable. With the Legionnaires slaughtered, Madael took control of the ruined strike cruiser Veritas Ferrum, warping it into a demon vessel to spread chaos across the So Madael, sorry, I said he was a demon prince. He's just a demon.
Yeah, he's hard to say. Like maybe he's a greater demon of Undivided, but honestly, Samus people think is better suited for that, and this is more demon prince. But with Undivided, it gets weird, and even later we talk about Runestorm Brutes, which or another type of demon. So we get weird when we get into Undivided, because these terms have not been cleared, and some of them kind of started at one spot and then it shifted. And anyways, yeah.
Okay. Taking the title of the Pilgrim, Madile led a fleet of warp-corrupted ships sowing destruction across the galaxy. He saw his mission as a divine crusade in the name of the ruinous powers, bringing their gifts to unwilling worlds. At some point, he was charged with a sacred task, the corruption of Sanguinius, Primarch of the Blood Angels. When Sanguinius, Reboot Guilliman, and Lionel Johnson attempted to breach the Rune Storm to reach Terra, they encountered Madile's path of devastation. The confrontation culminated at Davin, where Sanguinius was drawn into a portal at the altar where Horus had once fallen. Inside, he was presented with a vision of the Emperor falsely congratulating him for saving the Imperium. Realizing the deception, Sanguinius struck down the false Emperor, who was revealed to be Madile in disguise, attempting to tempt the angel into taking the throne for himself. With his trickery exposed, Madile abandoned subtlety and unleashed his demonic hordes, seeking to force Sanguinius into servitude. Bound by demonic chains, the angel was given a choice: take Horus's place as War Master of Chaos or die, dooming his sons to the eternal curse of the Black Rage. Sanguinius refused, and the brutal battle erupted. Guilliman, L. Johnson, and the Sanguinary Guard breached the portal to aid their brother, and in the ensuing chaos, Madile and Sanguinius were both gravely wounded. Trapped between the Veritas Ferrum and the portal on Davin, Sanguinius was ultimately saved by his loyal herald, who sacrificed himself to pull Madile into the abyss. Despite the apparent defeat, Madile later returned during the Siege of Terra, leading a host of demons against the defenders of the throne world. His fate beyond this climactic battle remains unknown, but his role in the heresy left a legacy of destruction, deception, and the will of Chaos Undivided.
And then the Lupercal says, I'm sure the way he presents himself to Sanguinius is he is the herald of Chaos Undivided. Yeah, and that kind of gets interesting. Like, herald is a type of demon. It's specifically like a better, lesser demon. But also that could just be a title, and he's his own special class of demon. Because that's the weird thing, too, about the gods and chaos in general. They can make one-offs that are not like anything else, and not just like a named greater demon, like a completely new creature, entity style.
Yeah.
So
yeah, especially with like his power levels, like he seems very powerful for being his own independent creature.
He seems more like Demon Prince level in my mind.
Yeah.
And then we get to Samus. We've mentioned him a bunch. I'm not going to do too much on him this episode because he could get his own episode. He's a very interesting daemon. And also, I'm not sure if he is Chaos Undivided. So this is up for debate too for this episode, but we'll get to this in a second. Samus, the Demon Prince of the Rune Storm, is the name of a demon that was initially manifested on the 6319 near the end of the Great Crusade. Like a particularly all-powerful demon, Samus is an echo of a particularly powerful act or emotion that has taken place in the Materium. The time this act within the Materium is not particularly relevant to the demon's manifestations, as there is no time within the warp. Thus, demons may be spawned from acts that take place well after they first appear. In Samus's case, his birth is the result of the murder of two important characters, and I'm not going to say them because it would be a big spoiler for those. It's pretty esoteric, but a big spoiler, so we'll leave it at that. The thing to consider about Samus, and a lot of the time his wording is he's called the Prince of the Rune Storm, and he appears during the Rune Storm, which is a very specific warp storm. It almost seems like he's a demon prince that has control over this neck of the woods, a demon prince of Undivided. And in the Rune Storm, there's also Rune Storm brutes. So he almost seems to be able to manifest his own demons from the Rune Storm. What are your thoughts on that? Or maybe save that for a big episode on him? Or does he fit in Undivided?
Yeah, I like, just because I like to categorize things in my head, I'd like to slot him in under Undivided. And I also mentioned to on a previous episode about Samus potentially being related to Malal. But if that was more my head canon. But if I were to slot him into something, it makes sense for him to be undivided, just from what we do know. And there's a lot we
just
don't
another
know.
demon prince type, right?
Yeah. And he doesn't seem aligned to any one god. Like anytime he appears in the books, it's very unique. So yeah.
I think he appears in the first 2 books of the Horus Heresies, and you're right. It doesn't seem like he aligns with any particular god, and it's more just leading people to chaos is generally what his goal is.
Yeah.
As a as a goal unto itself, is just making people believe that silly superstition of chaos.
Yeah, like chaos. He gets that drill or that sick thrill from teaching people about chaos, where it's like, now you know the dark knowledge, and whether it's about chaos or Chinch or whatever, it's about the knowledge of it. The people of 6319 saw Samus as the equal to Satan, but I can't remember if it says he was one particular god. Philip Paul says, just like
the Satan character.
Like just like the manifestation of evil, essentially. Like it's gonna be bad times.
But like, the entity that like tempts you to do evil, and tempts you into going down dark roads or investigating dark arts and dark magic and blah blah blah. That's a very like sort of satanic Luciferian entity
image.
Even if you see a model of him, he kind of looks like he's all red and he looks very typically demonic, I'd imagine.
Okay.
You could probably get that Roman Catholic demon image in your mind. But so he has the ability to either make runestorm brutes or they just appear next to him. It's hard to say, but they are hulking creatures of twisted muscle and shaped bone. Demon brutes are the vanguard of the horde, created to break the fragile ranks of mortal armies and serve as a bulwark for the smaller minions of chaos that follow in their wake. Each of these brutish monsters tower over even the enhanced warriors of the Legion Astartes, and is capable of shrugging aside mass reactive projectiles of bolt guns as though they were irritations. So pretty cool beasts. I just actually found out about these guys today, and they got a pretty cool model online. All right, so now we've learned about kind of Chaos Undivided. Let's say like 90% of what we talked about was pretty canon, we'll say. And now it gets a little crazy where we're going to start separating some terms. We're going to start making our own and just trying to clean up Undivided. It's chaos, but we still want it to be nice and organized so we can build organizational flow charts to build our armies. So let's start with Chaos Undivided versus Chaos Unbound. Chaos Undivided is the worship of chaos as a whole, where the followers either revere all 4 ruinous powers equally or pledge themselves to the broader forces of chaos without favoring a single god. Champions of Chaos Undivided often seek balance between their gods, using their gifts using their gifts while avoiding the pitfalls of total servitude to one master. Chaos Unbound, on the other hand, is a rejection of the gods altogether, drawing power directly from the warp itself rather than offering devotion to any deity. Those who follow this path see the warp as infinite, untamed force, one that can be wielded without bending the near to Khorne, Chinch, Nurgle, or Slaanesh. Unlike Chaos Undivided, which still operates within the framework of the Dark Gods, Chaos Unbound treats the warp as raw, ever-shifting wellspring of potential unrestricted by divine will. However, this path is not without its risks. Without the patronage of one god, one is left vulnerable to the chaotic tides of the immaterium. Their sanity and soul constantly at risk of being consumed by the very power they seek to control. So basically, Unbound is the old school version of Undivided. And Unbound, we're going to start lumping characters such as the Iron Warriors and Perturabo, the Night Lords and Curs, the Alpha Legion. What other one is there? Word Bearers. They would go into Undivided because they serve all the gods equally. And then, of course, you got like the world eaters who serve corn, and you branch it out to specifically. But
What
you
would
know
you do with
that
Black Legion?
undivided, where they serve one or more gods. They're not unbound for sure, because unbound is like it would be maybe closer to what Abaddon personally thinks, but the Black Legion as a whole still want to serve chaos and not use it. Does that kind of track?
I think so.
Yeah, okay. So the first little separation that we're going to do is the separation of furies. They are no longer undivided demons. To be a undivided demon is to be a combination, not something new. So both legions, though they harness the power of the warp, their philosophy and methods are fundamentally opposed. The Undivided Legion exists as a union of chaos gods, blending their gifts and creating terrifying hybrid forces that reflect the twisted synergy of the ruinous powers. In contrast, the Unbound Legions reject the gods entirely, drawing their strength from the raw formless essence of the warp itself. While the Undivided see themselves as the ultimate expression of chaos through divine fusion, the Unbound scorn such devotion, believing the true nature of chaos is infinite, ever-changing, and beyond the petty rivalries of the dark gods. This ideological divide makes the two factions natural enemies, one seeking to merge the wills of the gods while the other striving to exist beyond them. So we got the two kind of legions. We got Undivided Legions, and we got Unbound. We'll start with Undivided and break that down a little more.
The Undivided Legions are not merely war bands that refuse to pledge themselves to a single god. They are the direct result of chaos in combination. These legions embrace all four ruinous powers at once. Their warriors infused with multiple divine gifts, creating horrifying blends of their patron strengths. Their sorcerers weave spells that mix the blessings of Chinch and Slanesh. Their warriors charge into battle with the unrelenting fury of Khorne and the undying resilience of Nurgle. Most disturbingly, the chaotic fusion of energies sometimes births hybrid demons, abominations that carry the traits of multiple gods, rare and terrible manifestations of divine convergence. The Undivided Legions are chaos at its most structured, paradoxically disciplined in their worship of the gods' combined power, believing that only through unity can chaos truly dominate reality.
Yeah, so hybrid demons in these Undivided Legions, and the concepts, yeah. Just imagine a bloodthirster that also has like the pox on it, and it has boils, and it's carrying the plague. Do you like this hybrid demon, or is it like the gods can't quite combine powers like that? It's like if you put two powers together, it explodes.
I like it conceptually because you could come up with some pretty cool. I'm all for more customization.
Yeah, like the kit bashing of this, man, would be wild.
Yeah, I'm just already picturing like slapping Khorne demon wings on a plague, not a plague bear. What are the big ones?
Great unclean one. Yeah, this fat
like
flying
yeah.
thing. Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like the combos you could do are just cool.
I don't know if I love the idea though. Like I don't know. It feels like I don't know what the right word is. Like heresy. Like they're not supposed to mix.
But that makes them extra damned. It's like more forbidden. It's like, oh,
it's more like almost like a mathematical impossibility of the universe. Like these things, like they can't actually mix. What I could maybe buy more is like maybe a Chaos Primarch or Astartes like pledges himself to two chaos gods and sort of gets the powers of both and can kind of like integrate both two chaos gods. But I don't know if I totally I don't know. I have to read about it a little more to be totally convinced that this can or should be a thing.
Yeah, like this is definitely my thought for sure. So I'm glad you're hesitant.
Okay.
But like I just think about these actions that like feed two gods at once. Could there not be a demon that specifically manifests from that eventually? Where these they're that middle ground where, okay, well, yeah, that's 90% Khorne, but there's a 10% demon of Nurgle in there just because of death.
Yeah, like a freaking bloodletting demonet, like the combos you could do. Man, like, and it because it feels wrong. I like it. I like it more for Chaos, right? Like it truly is like blasphemous to Chaos itself to do this. So
just go all the way. Just like take a bunch of don't you close your eyes and take a bunch of random pieces and glue them together.
Oh, Jordan, you made Chaos spawn, and that's what happens to most of these creations. Is where they just become too much chaos
and completely not functional or aesthetic.
Yeah. Now, like these hybrids, I imagine they are super rare. Like they're super rare, and like you kind of pointed out, Jordan, where they're typically going to be mortals that became demon princes and get these kind of dual hybrid. But man, I just imagine on the very rare circumstances, you get those hybrid lesser demons or the hybrid beasts.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Hybrid demon engines would also work very well because you can cram as many demons as you want into one engine.
Yeah, some are Khorne, some are Nurgle, some are Slaanesh. Just shove them all into a tank and see what happens.
Yeah, slap the top of the soul grinder. Look how many demons I can fit in this bad boy. I definitely like the Undivided Legion. Some fun concepts in there. Like that wasn't my goal of this episode, unfortunately, necessarily. Like I like the unbound aspect of this and what this opens up. Purge says in the chat, I would say the Night Lords are unbound by your standard. Chaos worship is frowned upon there, and while destined to be a traitor legion, regardless of the events, they just because the nature of the legion. Yeah, no, for sure, they are definitely unbound, just like the Iron Warriors and just like the Alpha Legion as well. Let's get into unbound legions. Jordan, read that off, and then we'll get into some brainstorming.
Alrighty. The unbound legions forsake the gods entirely, choosing instead to wield chaos in its purest form, most untamed form. They are not bound by divine favor, nor do they seek the blessings of any patron. They are the warp, shaped by its raw and infinite power. Their warriors draw strength directly from the immaterium, their bodies shifting and warping as they channel its energy. Their demons are not born from any gods, but God's will, but manifestations of the warp itself, shifting, unknowable horrors that defy categorization. Furies, once the lowest of the demonic hierarchy, now serve as the foot soldiers of these legions. While far greater entities emerge from the chaotic ether, taking forms dictated by the emotions and psychic echoes of the battlefield. To the unbound, chaos is something to be worshipped, is something to be harnessed, shaped, and unleashed without restraint. They are the storm without a master, the will of the warp given form, and they will see the galaxy drowned in the madness of unfiltered chaos.
Cool. Yeah, so this is the little change here. So we change Furies into the lesser demons, and my thought behind that is like they are formed from not a specific emotion, just like violent scraps of warp energy that are able to manifest, and then they kind of side with the chaos gods. So that, like you even said it yourself, Christian, they become lesser demons essentially. Even in power level, they're pretty equivalent to that.
Yeah, I personally, I like it.
Yeah. So now that we have kind of like a baseline of lesser demon, like I want to build out kind of what the Unbound Legion looks like, from demon princes to greater demons, all of it. And if we're going with the lesser demons as kind of our example, the Furies, we got this gargoyle vibe, as we kind of mentioned. We got Bellicor too, who looks very gargoyle-esque and almost looks like he's a Fury, just way bigger and stuff. I'll share my screen just for those. We looked at the Furies. This is now Bellicor. Pretty wild. Just a big bat-like demon. But the point of these, like the Unbound Legion, I think it's supposed to be like shadowy, dark. You know, it's like it's true chaos. It's like true evil. All actions go. There's not one preferred action. It's just whatever evil action, that's the best action. And a fear of theme, where when you look into chaos, you're usually terrified as like the first reaction. There's a sense of fear. So when building the Legion between these two kind of examples, of Be'lakor is an example of Undivided, and we got the Furies. That's kind of the vibe I wanted to continue building off of. When I was looking at greater demons and what they could potentially be like, my thought was one of two ways. Either you make Be'lakor your greater demon, because he's pretty archetypal for that kind of... He looks like an upgraded gargoyle, man. And maybe you give him a different head swap just to kind of make him unique, but not much would have to be done.
Yeah, he's almost Balrog-like, but more anthropomorphic, I would say.
I wonder if the Balrog would make a good demon for the greater demon. Yeah.
I'd maybe go less fire and more shadow, which the Balrog is shadow and flame. So I'd probably, but definitely that would be the vibe. More skull-like in its like visage, skull and horns.
Well, yeah, like I was thinking you make Be'lakor the greater demon, and then I was going to do this guy as the demon prince, because he's a little more unique and a little more kind of just different. So he's the Dark Oath Wilder Fiend from AOS, but he kind of looks like a haunched over gargoyle without wings and a bunch of horns. I would slap Demon Prince wings on this bad boy to kind of really give him that Demon Prince bigger vibe and gargoyle vibe. But yeah, he's unique. And then you got your greater demon and your lesser demon of Be'lakor and Furious, who look the same. You got this guy for your Demon Prince. How we tracking?
Yeah, I'm digging it, honestly.
Yeah. You know, Be'lakor, you could always use him as Be'lakor in this army too, and just like I said, you make that greater demon Be'lakor slightly different. When you buy the demon,
I like that one a little less, only because it feels less creative. But
my thought was like, so you have to buy the Demon Prince to get this guy some wings. Also, you'd probably slap on like an axe on this guy or some. But basically, you have a Demon Prince kit of conversion. So your Be'lakor, you could start slapping some Demon Prince bits on to kind of drift them away while still keeping them close.
Sure. Again, it's not my favorite, but yeah, I see what you're saying for sure.
Yeah. They do have some like night haunts, AOS kind of like dragon ghoul bat creatures that are pretty large that you could almost use. Like people ride on top of them as like undead dragons almost. But I think it's too beastie and not humanoid enough almost. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but you know what they could be? Chaos steeds.
They could be for sure. I was kind of thinking there would be no chaos steeds for this army. And just like I didn't really find anything good, and maybe I was thinking maybe you don't bind chaos in this way, like no, you're not riding these demons. But I wasn't quite attached to them. They could definitely be chaos steeds. They're a little big compared to the other demons, but
fair enough. I mean, there are no rules.
There are no rules. Yeah,
Chinch's steed is a disc and Corn's is a juggernaut. Let's not get bogged down in details here.
Sure. If we jump to the beasts of the Unbound, man, I would just fucking be a hack and use Corn's flesh hounds, because they have the I'll pull up a picture here. They almost have the little bat-like wings, but on their necks.
You're really leaning into the bat thing, eh?
The gargoyle theme, man, kind of really spoke to me. This gargoyle shadow terror, like gothic vibe, like Arkham City, the gargoyles on all the statues and stuff to make it dark and menacing, like
Batman.
Now sorry to maybe push back on that a little bit, but maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't gargoyles more like guardian angels? Like they're supposed to like protect a location. Am I wrong completely off on that?
Yeah, I think there's even stuff about like how gargoyles even started looking ugly. There's a whole bunch of real world mythology on that. Like I think gargoyles used to be more animals, and then they slowly turned into these like monsters. I remember reading about them. It's a very interesting story if you Wikipedia them. There's quite a bit on gargoyles, but I can't remember all the details off the top of my head. Maybe I'll scan it here in a sec. But
yeah,
that is interesting. Yeah, quick like research, and yeah, definitely lots of like guards buildings, but also protection and warding off evil. They were believed to be guardians for sure. Which that's interesting because even that Gargoyles TV show that we mentioned, that's kind of their vibe in that. So literally the exact opposite vibe I get when I see them, which is like terrified and like you see a shadow of them flying over you and like the beating of wings, and it's like fear, and I guess they're just here to help.
Yeah.
And I do like, Mark, the leaning into the dark and fear themes. I think fear isn't like, of course you have the Night Lords, but I do feel like it's an underutilized chaos emotion that definitely you can lean into. Now, I'm not a big fan of your use of another god's sworn creatures. I totally get what you're doing with the frills being like bat wing like. I do agree with you, but only based on the fact that they are very obviously flesh hounds. Like you should do something like change their heads or do something to separate them a little more.
I wonder what the old flesh hounds look like. I'm gonna do a quick Google search.
That the other group I was thinking of, or maybe like I think they're called Chaos Dire Wolves from Fantasy, which they look like just big wolves with lots of spikes and horns on them.
I think they're a little too like
from your bat theme.
But dire wolf is like typically like just a werewolf.
Okay, so what about this, Christian? We use the old flesh hounds of Khorne, where that's them now, where they still get the cool crested fin, but they're different. And these guys are like a lot more chaotic. Sometimes they have the fins on the side, like ears, and like sometimes it's the head or the bottom.
I actually like those ones better, to be honest.
Yeah,
just how they look. More chaos.
Yeah, I would give you that, and that'd be a cool excuse to use both versions of the same model. I could get behind that. And obviously they would be probably like black and gray rather than red.
Yeah, like the goal is shadow. Like even Bellicor, like a lot of his psychic powers involve like this darkness and like an aura of feeling dread and like so definitely dark colors. That would definitely be the beast. You mentioned seeds. Like I said, I didn't have a good one, man. And I kind of figure
I like those bat things, honestly. I don't know why you don't like them.
Let me show you just how big it is here. Because maybe when you see it,
you're hung up on them being equivalents, though. Like again, when one steed is a disc and another steed is a juggernaut, you couldn't get more different between those.
Yeah. Okay.
So I don't see a problem with it. And maybe they're more rare or more powerful. Like that's okay too.
I suppose.
I honestly just really like them because they fit totally in with your bat theme.
Yeah. Okay, I'll allow it. Yeah, no, it's fine. Yeah.
Have I won you?
You want me over? Always. I'm a reasonable man. You'll find. And then the final part of the puzzle is the demon engine. Soul grinders, I think, are fucking tight for this purpose, man. Like they're these kind of exposed demons welded to a machine. I think they're perfect. You could obviously put them in any one, but I think the soul grinders fit.
Yeah. Even like their look, the look of the demons, like face, is very much in line with the themes we're going for here. So,
you could go with like hell drakes or whatever they are, but I feel like that's just like you don't get that like exposed like what the fuck is this now? Like
honestly, I've never been a fan of those demon engines. The Helldrake or the what's the big beast looking one?
Yeah, like Forge Fiends or Mauler Fiends.
Yeah, I've never been into that aesthetic anyway, so I'm okay with omitting them from this project.
Yeah. And yeah, I think soul grinders, but you could use anything you want. So to go back, the theme of the Unbound is gargoyles / bats. We never talked about heralds. You could just take a fury and give him some armor plates, and it would be that simple and a better weapon. Just throwing that out there. But yeah, the Demon Prince, I think, you definitely go the route of, you buy the Dark Land Wild Beast or whatever the fuck. You slap some Demon Prince wings on there, maybe a head swap, slap a weapon in his arm. This is what I'm going to do, by the way. This is why I'm saying.
Yeah, I know. This is what it sounds like, is we're making a shopping list for you.
Yeah, no.
All just been a big excuse to craft your
Merlin miniatures. Here I come. Get my own promo code.
I don't know if this will connect totally into this episode, but are you doing any more in the near future, any more chaos or demon episodes?
No more demon episodes. This was the last of the series, although we are going to do one more episode for each god, but we're going to do their mortal followers. So
okay, gotcha. Yeah, okay, so I am sort of curious, so I'll try to introduce this concept in a way that makes sense. So like, okay, even the word demon, it's like the Greek word daemon or daemonis, and that's kind of where we in the English get the word. The Hebrews used it, but they sort of viewed the daemons as strictly evil entities, right? Whereas the Greeks used it, but they were more neutral. They could be good, they could be bad. And the Greeks actually had a very strange view of the daemons, that they were sort of the spirits of a golden race. Like Plato talks about this in some of his dialogues, about how like the spirits of this progenitor golden race comes and gives us wisdom and stuff. And they actually viewed the daemon as like very good. But then like other cultures, I don't know, they took, especially Hellenized cultures like the ancient Hebrews during the Roman occupation, probably took the concept and they had their own concept. They just used the word they're like, oh yeah, this is the same thing as a daemon, right? So they called it a demon. Anyways, not to get too into the weeds on that, but there is this whole idea that even among, like, if you read the writings of St. Paul, he says that like that Satan can come as he can present himself as like an angel of light, and that demons can like be very actually attractive and alluring and tempting. Whereas like in the 40K world, it's like very cartoonish. Like to our human eye, they just obviously look evil. Like there's nothing about, you look at them, but like and I'm almost thinking like Samus, right? Like Samus is kind of, he's trying to tempt people. Again, I don't know what Samus actually looks like. I haven't actually looked into it. But he does, like, he whispers into the ears of people and tempts them, with sort of this like Gnosticism, like, oh, I can give you secret knowledge. The emperor is hiding it from you. Oh, there he is. Oh yeah. Yeah, very devilish looking. But like, are there any demons that actually look almost beautiful or like
seductive?
Yeah, seductive. Because to me, that would actually make a lot of sense, especially with someone like Slanesh or something. But I don't know if that's like an idea that is like utilized at all with the demons.
Not so much broadly, but you kind of mentioned it, that Slanesh does take on that aspect. Like demonettes often take the form of your desires specifically, and then like usually after you're already enthralled, they turn into their actual demonic form. But that's very broad, right? Like if they could appear as like an attractive woman, and like that's what gets you. But it's not the same. I know what you're saying, but like kind of that Luciferian kind of like
it's like the illusion of good, but then it leads you to the path of good
Yeah.
intention leads to damnations type concept.
Yeah.
Good thing.
Or
yeah.
like Sauron, exactly. Like he appears as like
Yeah.
a bearer of gifts and like light and bright and like good, the appearance of good. Yeah, that's not really something that I've found totally explored. But Mark,
I
what's
feel like
your
they
thought?
should.
I feel like just with 40K though, it's not supposed to be these good things. It's supposed to be very clear shades of bad.
I feel like you could find like a balance though, where you can create like even a miniature or a character that it is sort of has this. You're going into the uncanny valley where it looks beautiful and ornate, but there's something sinister about it. You know what I mean? Like there's something there's something almost off-putting about it, but it's still like it's not just like purely grotesque looking, if that makes sense.
I pulled up some Slanish demons and let's see if any of these tickle your pickle. How about this 6-titted beauty?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's doing
Yeah.
it for you.
You're
That's
still
just tits guy.
What about this one? More many tits.
no, I Jordan, how's this as a thought? What if that's the role of like more like the Blood Angels and the Imperium, in the sense of like the Space Marines are monstrous.
If the Emperor is actually a chaos demon, then
I'm thinking less literally and more like conceptually, where like I said, the Emperor, or sorry, the Blood Angels, for example, or Space Marines more broadly, are like angels of death. They are monsters. They transcend the human, but are also like very, like they're the best of us, but also like there's something very wrong with what they are.
Yeah,
they're no longer human.
But there's something majestic about a Space Marine, right? Like,
yeah, but there's also something equally monstrous about them, right? Like, think about it. They're built like in real life. If someone was a Space Marine, they'd be horrifying to look at. Like, and their whole existence is predicated on destruction. Like, they are engineered to destroy. So again, like, yes, they are the best of us, but also the worst impulses of humanity. And like I said, Blood Angels are great for that because they lean on that very angelic theme. But again, when you look at what their purpose is and what they actually are, they're monsters. A lot of that's coming from like my conversation with Rick Priestley is they're vampires or blood-sucking monsters.
Jervis Johnson got a hold of me through email. I reached out to him and we're going to set up a time. So that's the next big old hitter from back in the day that we got an interview with. So super excited to kind of do that, man. It's so crazy hearing these old guys and like what were your intentions actually, man? Tell me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, and that was one that really stuck with me, is like, yeah, Space Marines are cool and epic and everything, but also their intention and purpose are like brainwashed, they're kidnapped as children, like everything about what they are is pretty awful too.
Yeah.
Right. So, and that's where I think that those elements of like almost a Luciferian like seduction, which like again, like they look freaking sweet, they look awesome, but like would I offer up my kids or myself to become a Space Marine? And like honestly, chances are you're gonna die. You're gonna die a horrible death before you even get that far, right? Like everything about the process is horrific. And I think that is where that comes from. And even the whole idea of like the chaos divide within the Space Marines is getting away from the demons and stuff. But like there is very much the Paradise Lost analogy, right? Where, the whole fall of Horus, the favored son, and like taking half the legions, half the angels with him. I think all that aspect of what you were talking about earlier about the concepts of demons and angels is more reflected in the Space Marines rather than the demons.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, just my diatribe on that. But
yeah, interesting. Cool. Well, let's hop into call-ins and see how you feel out there about Chaos Undivided and Unbound. The Looper Call. Hey, welcome.
Hey guys, how y'all doing?
Doing very good.
Good.
Is that kind bud there on your or just a regular cigarette?
Yeah, you were right on that first call out.
Nice. Okay, so you're getting in the mindset of craziness. What do you think of this
Always.
episode? Do you like the concept of unbound? Am I taking undivided and just putting labels where they shouldn't be labels?
I do like the concept, both concepts of what you put across. I do agree with the way that you do undivided, which would, for me, be all the Chaos Gods working together for a united front. I do think that the unbound concept is, for me, something that they need to work on a bit more. There's a lot of things that could come forward where there could be actual the general definition of chaos, of everything being completely out of control, by bringing in more unbound factions where even the Chaos Gods lose control over their own units per se, and maybe even like something corrupts them into a higher form of evil.
Sure. Would you count unbound enslavers as unbound, where, like you said, it's kind of like this next level against the gods of corruption or evil?
Yeah, I would consider it that way, and I think there's points in earlier lore where Chaos Unbound was actually more of the force that the other factions fought against. I think that like the Necrons in the past were more fighting against Chaos Unbound rather than the Chaos Gods themselves.
Yeah, more just like that untapped energy of the warp or whatever, that like raw.
Yeah, like because the unbound energy would have that potential to corrupt in an uncontrolled way, and I think that the Chaos Gods sort of like more refine that energy into those specific things more than they are just like the creations of those energy. It's more like refining light through a crystal, but like obviously what?
Yeah, sure. No, that's a great example. The light through a crystal. Sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that there's a lot of things that get mentioned in like the books and in the lore that we need a tabletop representation for, because there's so many amazing things that you could do. And I know a few people in the Discord do it, where we'll do like tabletop simulator battles to help them write the lore out. And I think it could help people flesh things out a lot easier, like bringing a more diverse set of models out, where it might not necessarily be a Slaneshi demon or a Khorne demon or whatever, but it's just like a box that is just demon parts that you can completely kit bash like for yourself.
Sure. Like a demon upgrade kit for the combined legions. Like yeah. I like that thought.
And we get a lot of like Primaris kits and stuff like that, but we never really get anything like upgrading for any of the other factions unless you go and look at like third party. Like I found a seller on Etsy that does third party add-ons for Necrons, so you can actually have the beam of the gun coming out and stuff like that.
Oh, cool. You have to send me a link to that.
Yeah, I'll send you the link later on.
Yeah, I've seen like plenty of muzzle flashes and stuff, but that seems cool. Or like Tau pulse rifle bursts. But the Necron seems cool. Yeah, okay. So what about hybrid demons in the undivided legions, where we get like the half Khorne, half Nurgle, and like they actually look half and half? How do you feel about that?
I think that there's a lot of ways that we could look further with that. I love the idea of having like a Khorne berserker that can just do like Psychoblast because he's been blessed by Tinch as well as Khorne. Or like having like little Nurgle demons that just tempt you into doing anything because they've been blessed with Slanesh. And like there's a part in the Siege of Terror where two of the Death Guard like share like these twin Nurgle demons, and they're like, you tell one thing and the other one instantly knows it. But you could like use that like those as blessed by like Tinch or Slanesh, and use them to impart knowledge, or like literally have one on your shoulder and send the other one to whisper into people's ears, and like you tempt them like remotely, sort of thing.
Yeah, I love that.
That just sounds like walkie-talkies with extra steps, but okay.
Soul talkies. Yeah, man. Like, cool. Yeah, and okay, the other final thoughts, I guess, about the Unbound Legion. How do you think we did when creating the Unbound Legion of assorting demons and stuff?
I think it's a hard category to do realistically, because it's not being fleshed out by GW all that well, and any knowledge that we do have of it, it's stuff that we have to piece together. And until they put any like dire definitions on anything, like, it's all speculation, and I think you did a really good job of it.
Yeah, I just leaned hard into the Furies. I'm like, okay, what are Furies? How do you expand that to more? Oh, well, Be'lakor, and okay, what about their dogs? Because even in that Gargoyle TV show, they have a gargoyle dog called Bronx.
Yeah.
That's kind of like this fat, almost like bulldog gargoyle. So I'm like, oh yeah, well that kind of. So that was kind of what happened. A little nostalgia hit me.
Yeah, I think that like, after listening to you talk about it for the last hour, I'm definitely going to be like looking into doing like at least something that's there to represent Unbound, whether it be playable or not.
Yeah.
I like the whole idea of not just like building your army for the sake of the army, but also like being able to do like dioramas out of what you've made, and like setting up like the battles that you enjoyed the most from the stories and stuff like that. And I think that at least kit bashing a few Unbound demons would make for some entertaining lore.
Yeah. That's been one of the most refreshing things about moving in Panama in my hobby time. When I do build now, it's not for tabletop, which means I can just go wild with the models, where before I always felt so fucking constricted. You know, you hear about mark rules and all that nonsense, and yeah. You know, I was just trying to get away with the rule of cool and try to create stuff, and now I can do that. So that's a lot of fun. Because yeah, with Unbound, there's just so much potential. Yeah. All right. Well, any closing thoughts there?
No, not really.
All right. Well, nice chatting. You enjoy the rest of your time there.
Well, thank you for having me.
Adios, Lipicol. All right. And now it was Christian and Jordan. So, you know, I've been thinking about a way to leave my mark on 40K, and I've had some greats like the Astrocrota and Crotalids. I feel like Lorehammer brought that kind of little piece of lore to light. You know, there's Kroot and Jizz hands, and I definitely know I spread those Jizz hands far and wide. But both those were kind of already things, you know, where Unbound, it's like this kind of concept that exists, but it expands. It's nice little category where I think it could be my mark on 40K. Should I start whipping out 3D printers and just start shipping people minis, or what?
Yeah, lift that leg and leave your mark, brother.
Yes. Okay, that's one yes for Jordan. Okay, well, I think I'm gonna do it, man. It's been a minute since I had done an army, but I got cleared to spend some money on 40K. So I'm just like, man, do I buy some Kroot? Do I do this cool Unbound? What do I get up to with my dollarinos?
Yeah, no, you have my blessing, Mark. I just like it when you spend money. So
yeah.
I'm that little nurgling on your shoulder.
Come on, that paper's gonna disintegrate anyway. Spend it while you have it.
Inflation's but eroding your buying power. You better dump your value now.
Oh god damn, you're right. Bye. Well, that's the end of this episode. It was a lot of fun kind of doing Unbound. You know, check up on me in 6 months and we'll see if I actually fell for this chaos trap. You know, I've hovered over the buy button a couple times. I got tabs on tabs open, but you know, I and you should go check out Merlin's miniatures, and maybe we will get tempted further, and maybe we will use promo code Lorehammer, and maybe we'll buy. But until then, you can go listen to more Lorehammer, listen to lore podcast stuff. You can listen to more Lorehammer stuff. Go check me out wherever I'm doing stuff. But check out Lorehammer stuff, I suppose.
Yeah, and don't forget to listen to the Star Wars podcast, the best Star Wars podcast on the HoloNet. You guys know where you can find us. Just search Star Lores in your favorite podcasting app. Google us. You'll find us. Star Lores, Lores with an L podcast.
Yeah.
So many regrets around the way the name sounds on air because you never know what you're saying for sure.
Yeah.
Star Wars or Star Lords?
And thank you so much to our Patreon members. We got one new person, Darcy. Thank you so much, and thanks for the people in the chat. You know, all the continued Patreon members. We have some people that have been donating for 5 or 6 years, which is just thank you so much. We really do appreciate all the dollarinos you throw away. Helps produce the show and keeps things going. So, up next, I guess some quick housekeeping. I'm going to be gone for 3 episodes. I'm going on vacation. But Lorehammer Legal said, hey, now's a good time to do Space Wolves. When Mark's away, let the puppies play. So the boys are going to take on Lehman Russ and the Space Wolves for a couple episodes, and I'll come back on, part 4 of that. But I hope you guys have a good time with it.
Yeah, it's never a good time when Space Wolves are involved, but we'll do our best.
Yeah. I've been barred from talking about them. One too many F words were dropped. So, yeah. All right. Well, everyone, we'll see you when we see you. Have a good one.
See ya.